What happens when a judge's beachfront home burns amid threats, accident, or attack? Maya offers history and community stakes. Leo demands forensic rigor and skepticism. Tonight, we separate verified facts from online spin. Lives, the judiciary, and truth are on the line. Tonight, the official story says one thing. The public conversation says another. A beachfront home burned. An apparent explosion is alleged, but investigators say the cause is unknown. We're going to separate what we know from what we think we know.
And we have to name the stakes. A judge's family is hurt, a home is gone, and a climate of threats and intimidation didn't appear out of nowhere. This is about power, rhetoric, and who gets targeted when lines are crossed.
Or it's about a fire we do not understand yet. The loudest takes jump straight to arson and politics. I'm here for a little patience and a lot less speculation.
Here are the verified facts. On Saturday, October 4th, 2025, mid-morning, a fire destroyed Judge Diane Goodstein's three-story home in the Jeremy K community on Edisto Beach. Officials described an apparent explosion preceding the blaze. The judge was walking her dogs. Neighbors and first responders reached occupants who escaped into the yard and marsh. Some rescues happened by kayak. At least 3 people were hospitalized with serious injuries, including her husband, former state senator Arnold Goodstein. He reportedly jumped from the structure and was airlifted to the Medical University of South Carolina with multiple fractures.
The image of neighbors paddling kayaks through marsh grass to pull victims from behind a burning house, hold that. Because while people risked their lives, others were online turning the wreckage into a political weapon.
Some were also turning it into a thriller. One channel framed it as a terrifying explosion that nearly took the life of a top Democrat. A judge is nonpartisan. That's a sloppy, loaded label designed to juice clicks.
South Carolina's State Law Enforcement Division, SLED, took over after the fire was contained. The Chief Justice said, "We do not yet know if it was accidental or arson. Extra patrols and security were requested in the interim."
And that interim is not benign. Weeks before the blaze, she blocked the release of detailed voter files to the federal government, then the state Supreme Court reversed her. After that came escalated criticism and death threats, according to multiple accounts.
Criticism and threats are different planets. Threats are crimes and should be prosecuted. But tying those threats to this fire before the forensics are in is a leap. We've got to keep those wires from crossing.
Conflicting details alert. Some reports say late evening, others say mid-morning. Some call it an explosion. Investigators have not confirmed. Some say conditions are stable. Officials described injuries as serious without full public detail.
Confusion is the oxygen of spin. But the larger pattern is not confusion. Judges are facing escalating hostility. As Judge Esther Salas said, political leaders must stop fanning the flames, stop using irresponsible rhetoric.
Agreed on toning it down. Also agreed on accuracy. Another video tied this to an unrelated governor's arson case to suggest a trend. That's connecting dots with a crayon. Show evidence first, then hypothesize.
To be precise, SLED says the cause is unknown. Arson investigators are on scene, but will wait until it's safe to do a full forensic exam. No suspects, no motive announced. That is the baseline.
Baseline noted. And yet the atmosphere matters. We've had high-profile posts calling for judges to be punished or impeached for rulings, including a former president shouting that a judge should be impeached. That corrodes norms and invites harm.
It also invites bad journalism. One video warned we're a year from full autocracy and even floated soldiers by ballot boxes. That kind of fear-casting makes people less rational, not more vigilant.
Fear-casting is real, but so is intimidation. When a judge blocks a data handover tied to millions of voter records and then receives threats, it's not paranoia to ask whether targets are being painted on officials' backs.
Ask away. Just separate the question from the answer we do not have. Because once possible act of arson becomes a headline mantra, the caveats disappear and the story runs on fumes.
And we forget the human scene. A 3-story home engulfed, marsh rescues by kayak, a family in trauma. That is not speculative. That is documented by responders from Colleton County Fire Rescue and St. Paul's Fire District.
Let's also address the smear economy. As soon as the fire hit the feeds, old unproven allegations from 2007 resurfaced. That's the playbook. Drag a woman judge with innuendo when she's at her most vulnerable.
We can say 2 things at once. 1, those allegations were never charged or proven. 2, It's normal for a public figure's history to be revisited. The media's job is to contextualize, not weaponize, and not sanitize.
For clarity, the 2007 controversy involved a clergy-abuse settlement and a fee dispute tied to a family friend's firm. Prosecutors never charged Judge Goodstein, and no court found wrongdoing. Keep that distinction sharp.
Another distinction, the judge's name. Some videos even misspelled it as Diana. These are small tells. If a source can't get the name right or the time of day straight, I'm not trusting their leap to motive.
And yet, sloppy sources aside, the threats are not imaginary. A judge close to her reportedly said she's had multiple death threats over the years. That should terrify us. It should also mobilize us to protect the judiciary.
Judge Richard Sullivan put it starkly. Threats against judges are threats against constitutional government. That is not a partisan line. It's a stability line.
So let's model stability. Here's a tidy list of unknowns. What triggered the fire? Was there in fact an explosion? Was it accidental or intentional? Who was present and why? Until SLED answers, our posture should be humble and curious.
Curious and urgent, because if this was targeted, we cannot wait months to bolster security. Extra patrols help, but judges need threat monitoring, safe housing protocols, and rapid response plans now, not after the next headline.
Fine with better security. Also fine with better media hygiene. One clip claimed all 3 victims were already stable. Another said conditions were unclear. That's how rumors sprout. Wait for the hospital or SLED to speak.
Officials said 3 were hospitalized with serious injuries and did not fully detail conditions publicly. That's where the record stands. Anything beyond that is an unverified add-on.
Let's talk cause. Coastal homes have vulnerabilities, aging systems, salt air corrosion, hurricane hardening that can hide defects. But the timing against a backdrop of threats is at minimum suspicious enough to warrant a wide lens.
And a careful lens. A loud bang does not equal a bomb. Gas, electrical faults, structural collapse can all mimic explosions. That's why arson investigators exist, so we don't mistake noise for intent.
On timeline, one video placed the fire late in the evening. The verified timeline is mid-morning. The discrepancy matters. If a source gets the clock wrong, treat their cause and effect theory with caution.
What about motive frameworks? Judges who cross powerful interests become targets online. Even if the fire is accidental, the threat ecosystem is real. That's why speech from the top matters. Words can be matches in dry grass.
Words can also be fog. Saying, "We're 1 year from autocracy" is a ratings move. It conditions people to see every tragedy as a coup. That's not vigilance, that's panic addiction.
Let's return to the scene. First responders from Colleton County Fire Rescue and St. Paul's Fire District reached people in the yard and the marsh. Some rescues by kayak likely prevented fatalities. That's a fact worth naming twice, only to honor it.
And the family? Arnold Goodstein reportedly suffered multiple fractures after a jump. 2 other relatives, including a son, were transported. Serious injuries, limited details, not a vacuum to fill with fantasies, but a call for empathy and restraint.
Empathy and restraint also mean not turning their property value, age, or inventory of belongings into gossip bullets. Some posts priced the home and tallied important legal documents. It's voyeurism dressed as news.
Investigatively, here's what we watch next. SLED's forensic analysis of debris patterns, accelerant tests, possible gas or electrical sources, witness interviews, and any security camera pulls from the gated community's entry points.
Also the threat trail. Were recent messages preserved? Did local law enforcement log prior incidents? Extra patrols were ordered. Did that include the neighborhood, digital monitoring, or just drive-bys? Process matters if we want deterrence.
And we should interrogate media process too. Who verified the time of day? Who confirmed the explosion descriptor? Who checked the spelling of Diane? Small checks prevent big errors from snowballing into narratives.
The judiciary has already called for cooler language. The Chief Justice flagged uncertainty on cause and urged security. That's the institutional line. Caution, extra patrols, and close communication with SLED while the probe continues.
Caution is good. Silence isn't. Leaders who lit the fuse with dehumanizing talk need to say plainly that threats against judges are attacks on the Constitution, not both sides, a real unqualified condemnation.
I'll take the unqualified condemnation and add one more. Stop monetizing outrage. One video even spliced in healthcare panic to keep the adrenaline up. That's not reportage. It's bundling fear as a product.
There's a duty here, to accuracy, to patience, and to the people in that house. Until SLED speaks, we hold the line between correlation and causation. Meanwhile, we document the climate without pretending it answers the cause question.
One more climate point. Judges have families. When threats escalate, spouses and kids become collateral. Security resources tend to lag until after a tragedy. This time, can we be proactive instead of performative?
Yes, and that includes protecting due process and public opinion. If SLED finds an accidental cause, will the same loud voices correct themselves? Or will they quietly move on to the next shock clip? Accountability cuts both ways.
Let's mark the contradictions cleanly. Time of day, disputed in early posts, verified as mid-morning by officials. Explosion, described by some leaders, not confirmed by investigators. Medical status, serious, with limited public detail. Ownership details, not fully confirmed by SLED.
And name the through line, threats preceded the fire. That doesn't prove causation. It does prove a duty to take threats seriously, invest in protection, and de-escalate public language about judges right now, not later.
Strategically, we should also remember, good investigations hate clocks. The worst thing we can do is insist on a narrative by Tuesday. The second worst is to let that narrative calcify even after facts arrive.
Neighbors, responders, and a family are living with the aftermath tonight. Behind the headlines, there's an empty lot, medical charts, and smoke in the memory. That reality is bigger than any take.
And for the record, condemnation from the very top matters. When leaders say, threats against judges are threats against constitutional government, that's not performative, that's a map back to sanity.
It's also a reminder to the rest of us, don't share the spicy clip that can't keep the basics straight. If a post can't nail the who, when, where, it has no business telling you the why.
Quick recap as we pivot. Facts. Mid-morning fire, 3 hospitalized, SLED investigating, cause unknown, extra patrols ordered. Context. Recent threats after a voter file ruling, heated rhetoric, revived old allegations without proof. Questions. Cause, motive, and security gaps.
My closing take? De-weaponize language, fund judicial security, and when tragedy strikes, center victims, not cliques. If the cause is criminal, treat it like an attack on the system. If it's accidental, learn and harden protections anyway.
Mine. Trust the process, distrust the spectacle. Wait for SLED's chemistry, debris mapping, and interviews. And hold media to the same standard we demand of prosecutors. Evidence first, narrative later.
What happens next? SLED's forensic work, potential updates on injuries, and whether any threat reports intersect with the evidence. We'll be here when facts move from smoke to signal. Until then, keep your skepticism tuned and your empathy high.